Few gaming franchises have had the impact GTA has, a series that didn't just raise the bar for open world gaming, it set it. But today, we're not here to glaze Rockstar. We're here to talk about the things that players hated the most about every single mainline entry. Because as legendary as these games are, none of them were perfect, and each one came with its glaring frustrations that the community has never stopped talking about to this day. So without wasting any time, let's get straight into the video. Kicking things off with Grand Theft Auto 3, the game that started it all. When this dropped in 2001, it took the world by storm and practically invented a genre overnight. But the more GTA games that came after it, the harder it became to ignore its frustrations, as once you've seen what the series evolved into, going back to GTA 3 makes some of its shortcomings extremely hard to overlook. Starting with something that feels so fundamental to GTA that it's almost shocking to go back and realise it wasn't always there, and that's the ability to bail out of a moving vehicle. In every GTA that came after this, jumping out of a car at speed is second nature. You pretty much do it without even thinking. But in GTA 3, you actually have to bring the car to a complete stop before you can get out. And that wouldn't be so bad on its own, except cars catch fire constantly in this game. So every time you're on fire, you have to bring the car to a complete stop, get out, and then run away from the burning vehicle before it explodes. However, a lot of times you won't even get the chance to. Moving on to the next thing players hate about GTA 3, and this one is pretty hard to believe when you first find out, which is that unfortunately there is absolutely no map menu in this game. No overview of the city, no waypoints or markers, nothing. You're just navigating the entirety of Liberty City with just that tiny radar in the corner, which if you're a new player makes getting around the map frustrating as hell at times. It's worth mentioning though that there is a fantastic mod out there that adds a fully functional pause map menu to the game, and it looks so clean that you'd honestly think Rockstar made it themselves. Now this next one is what I personally hate most about GTA 3, and it's something that only gets worse the further you get into the game, which are the hostile gangs. As you progress through the story, certain areas of Liberty City become completely hostile to you, making parts of the map a literal no-go zone. The worst example by far is St. Mark's, the Leone family's turf. After completing the mission Sayonara Salvatore, driving through that neighbourhood becomes almost impossible. Gang members line the streets and they will pepper your car with bullets within seconds, and given how quickly vehicles catch fire in this game, which we just talked about, it really makes it a nightmare to drive through these hostile areas. Next up, one of the biggest missing features in GTA 3 is the absence of an entire vehicle class that feels essential: motorcycles. We get them in literally every mainline GTA game, but for whatever reason, GTA 3 has absolutely none. Now at the time, it most likely came down to technical limitations and/or Rockstar simply not having the time to get everything in before launch. However, what makes this one so interesting is that Rockstar actually went back and slipped a clever in-universe explanation for it, and they buried it in the manual of GTA Liberty City Stories 4 years later. So inside the game manual, there's this newspaper article printed on one of the pages about a new protest group campaigning to get motorcycles banned from the streets of Liberty City, claiming they're far too dangerous, apparently responsible for more deaths per year than old age itself. So by the time Claude's story rolls around in 2001, 3 years later, it's evident the campaign had worked, as motorcycles were nowhere to be found. It's a funny bit of world building from Rockstar and a clever way to retroactively explain the omission, but at the end of the day, you're still left without them for the entire game, and for a lot of players, one of the most fun ways to get around the map being missing is something that makes the game much less enjoyable than its successors. Moving on from GTA 3 to Vice City, one of the most beloved games in the entire series, with its iconic soundtrack, 80s aesthetic, neon lights, and legendary protagonist. Released just 1 year after GTA 3, it managed to improve on it in almost every way, but almost every way doesn't mean every way, and we're starting with one that is honestly hard to believe given the setting. And that of course would be the fact that Tommy Vercetti cannot swim. You're playing a game set in a Miami-inspired coastal city where water is literally everywhere, and yet the moment Tommy hits the ocean, he drowns almost instantly. It's a gripe players have always had with this game since it came out, and it's still a thing in the definitive edition. Your vehicle somehow ends up in the water, your boat tips over, or you just slip into the shallow ocean, it's over, and you lose all your weapons. For a game set in a beach beach-themed map with an intelligent protagonist who can survive massive shootouts with dangerous gangs and take over a city's entire criminal underworld. Not being able to swim just doesn't really make sense. It was mocked so openly that even the studio that made the game Driver actually made a character called Timmy Vermicelli as a collectible and Easter egg in their game. And yes, he's wearing armbands. Rockstar's only kind of explanation on this came in the manual for the original PS2 version of the game, where they left this small warning message inside that says, "Shark attacks off Vice City happen a few times a year and there are more sharks out there than you would like to think. Best advice, stay out of the water." Obviously the shark warning is just Rockstar's way of dressing up the fact that Tommy can't swim, and the real reason for that almost certainly comes down to the fact that Vice City was developed in just 9 months, so something had to give, and clearly swimming was it. The water doesn't really play a meaningful role in the story, so it wasn't deemed a priority, the irony being that it makes up nearly half the map. Next up we have the invisible height ceiling. The height limit in Vice City is hard-coded to a low ceiling of 75 meters, meaning you can't go higher than a building as short as this. It makes flying feel incredibly restrictive, especially in a game that was genuinely exciting players with proper flying aircrafts for the first time. Now this was done because some of the really tall buildings in this game don't have collision when you reach the top of them, except when you use mods to bypass the height limit. The vast majority of the rooftops you couldn't access before actually do have collision and work fine. And because the height limit is so low, there are well over a dozen tall buildings like this that you don't get to land on, fly over, or anything in the vanilla game, even though the collision on it is all perfectly fine. So yeah, the ceiling was definitely set much lower than it needed to be, leading to what felt like a pretty restrictive flying experience when players couldn't explore even those semi-high building rooftops. Moving on to the next thing players hate about GTA Vice City, which is the map size, or more accurately, the perceived map size. Now Vice City is a beautiful map, the art direction, the colours, the atmosphere are all incredible, but when you actually sit down and look at how much of it is usable, explorable land, it starts to feel pretty small. Compare it to GTA 3's Liberty City, which felt dense and packed with detail, or San Andreas, which came after and absolutely dwarfed it in terms of sheer scale. And Vice City starts to feel a little thin. It's one of those things that doesn't necessarily ruin the experience, but once you notice how small and flat it actually is, it's hard to unsee. And finally, for Vice City, the cops. Ask any long-time GTA fan which 3D era game has the worst police, and Vice City will be the answer 99.9% of the time. And that's because Vice City has police officers on foot absolutely everywhere. Literally every corner you turn, a cop will be there. If you quickly look behind you, then back in front of you, a cop will most likely spawn. In every pedestrian crowd, there's a cop. It's just ridiculous, and because the map feels so small, it makes the constant police presence feel even more suffocating. You can't go anywhere without one breathing down your neck. Even at 1 or 2 stars, escaping them feels like a task in itself, since there are so many cops spawning everywhere. The moment you think you've lost them, there's another one right around the corner that spots you. The whole thing just makes Vice City feel weirdly hostile to the player, like the city itself is working against you at every turn. Now moving on to the last of the 3D era games we're covering in this video, Grand Theft Auto San Andreas. One of the greatest games ever made, full stop. But even San Andreas has its frustrations, and we're starting with one that every single person who has played through this game knows all too well.
Hey Caesar, the Yay leaving San Fierro, right?
Right, but they're using bikes, CJ, and they go cross country.
Not right now. I gotta check into some shit.
Caesar's annoying ass phone calls, specifically the Yay courier calls. After you unlock the San Fierro garage safe house, Caesar starts calling CJ every Wednesday and Saturday in game time to let him know that a drug courier is leaving San Fierro on a dirt bike every single week without fail, which you're forced to answer and hear the same exact voice lines every time.
Hey Caesar, the Yay leaving San Fierro, right? Hey Caesar, the Yay leaving San Fierro, right? Hey Caesar, the Yay leaving San Fierro, right?
And this doesn't let up for a while. The calls start when you unlock the garage in San Fierro at around mission 30 and don't stop until you complete mission 60. That's around 30 missions worth of gameplay you're receiving these calls for. To put it further into perspective, one in-game day in San Andreas is just 24 real-life minutes, meaning an in-game week flies by in under 3 hours. So Caesar is effectively calling you every hour and a half of real playtime for a huge chunk of the game, for a mission that is is completely optional and doesn't even count towards 100% completion.
I must be the biggest fucking idiot in the whole fucking world.
Next up, the draw distance. And if you've ever taken a plane or helicopter across San Andreas and suddenly just exploded out of nowhere, you already know exactly what I'm talking about. The draw distance in San Andreas is low enough that objects like trees, telegraph poles and other structures don't always render until you're right on top of them. So when you're flying at speed, you can clip something that literally isn't visible on screen yet and just blow up with no warning whatsoever.
Turned away.
The draw distance is mainly an issue on consoles and low-end PCs, and it gets even more interesting because this ties into another infamous San Andreas phenomenon, the random NPC plane crashes. Throughout the game, small planes periodically spawn near the player to perform flybys, except sometimes they just crash into the ground, into buildings, occasionally directly into whatever vehicle you happen to be in. Players assumed for years it was intentional or some kind of weird feature, but a former Rockstar developer actually came out in 2024 and explained that it was the result of flawed code. The game's obstacle detection when spawning planes was so bare bones due to hardware limitations at the time that thin objects like trees simply wouldn't get picked up, sending planes off on what he called doomed paths from the moment they spawned. He admitted the bug was embarrassing and said he had actually briefly considered removing the flybys from the game entirely because of it. Nearly 20 years of players being blown up by invisible trees and crashing NPC planes, and it turned out even the developer didn't fully understand why it was happening. Next up, and this one is less of a broken mechanic and more of a relentless quality of life frustration, which is the process of buying and changing clothes. Whether you're in a clothing store or just trying to change at one of CJ's safe houses, it's the same painfully slow process every single time. You walk into the changing room marker, CJ disappears inside, you select a piece of clothing from the menu, and then CJ comes back out wearing it in an animation that lasts a good 6 seconds before you can do anything.
Anybody here seen my lizard?
Every single item you want to try on, you have to wait for a long animation to play out. It becomes genuinely tedious incredibly fast, and was such a widespread annoyance to players that people made mods specifically to remove the animations entirely. This was improved in GTA 4 and of course pretty much perfected with GTA 5, where clothing previews on your character in real time, which makes going back to San Andreas make the whole process feel that much more of a chore. Moving on, we couldn't talk about San Andreas without mentioning Zero and his missions. Just hearing his voice is enough to make veterans of this game want to put the controller down.
I said go away, Carl. I don't need any friends today.
Supply Lines is by far the most universally hated Zero mission, and one of the most hated missions in GTA history, full stop. The premise is simple enough. Take out Berkeley's couriers with an RC plane before they finish their deliveries, but the execution is a bloody nightmare.
Launch the Red Baron.
The plane is awful to control. Lining up shots with the minigun feels like a lottery, and the fuel-based timer means every second of bad flying is brutally unforgiving. It got so bad that Rockstar tripled the fuel in later ports to make it more passable. And perhaps the greatest detail of all, Zero's voice actor David Cross came out and admitted he couldn't even beat it himself, calling it so annoying and flat out impossible. Now moving on to GTA 4, and this is a game that truly deserves its flowers. Nico Bellic, the story, the physics, the attention to detail. GTA 4 is a masterpiece in a lot of ways, but coming off the back of San Andreas, which was arguably the most feature-rich GTA game ever made, players noticed almost immediately what was missing. And as you might have guessed, we're starting with player customization. In GTA 4, there are no accessible barbershops, so you can't change Nico's hair at any point in the game. They were clearly planning on having them at some point, as one of the cut barbershops can actually be spotted on the in-game TV. And in that footage, you can briefly see through the windows into the interior. There's also this barber interior photo found in the PC files of the game. You can still find this building in Rotterdam Hill, Broker, called Cut at the Corner, but of course you can't see inside it now at all. There's also a second unused location in West Dyke, Alderney, right next to the motorcycle dealership, and this one actually has an unfinished interior. Nico does have a couple of alternative hairstyles, as you can see here, but Rockstar never gave players a legitimate way to access them. There are no accessible tattoo parlors in Liberty City either, and with no weight and muscle system, we have no way of changing Nico's physique. The only real customization is clothing, but with only 3 chains to shop at, the Russian Pawn Shop, Modo and Perseus, the options were nowhere near what players were used to after San Andreas. The same former Rockstar developer we mentioned earlier in the San Andreas segment confirmed that to focus on making GTA 4 truly next-gen on PS3 hardware, Rockstar made the deliberate decision to drop a huge number of features from San Andreas, extensive player customization being just one of them. However, when you actually play GTA 4 and see what Rockstar achieved with the physics, storytelling and sheer level of detail, you understand why sacrifices were made. This game was a massive leap forward technically, but the lack of player customization is one of the things people still bring up to this day. Next up on a similar note, we have vehicle customization. San Andreas was the first Grand Theft Auto to introduce the ability to properly customize your car, and players absolutely loved it. You could modify the bodywork, add spoilers, change the wheels, paint it however you wanted, and so on. Unfortunately, GTA 4 scrapped all of that and went back to the bare bones pay and spray system where you drive in and it resprays your car a random colour. Instead of building a unique ride that felt like our own, we were stuck playing colour roulette at the pay and spray, hoping the game wouldn't spit us back out a terrible colour for the third time in a row. However, the shift back to the pay and spray wasn't just a technical limitation, it was a stylistic choice, as Rockstar wanted Liberty City to feel bleak and grounded. It also just didn't make much sense story-wise. Nico Bellic is a depressed, cynical, war-hardened immigrant haunted by his past and hunting for a traitor. He's not exactly the type to be down at the mod shop picking out new rims. And while that narrative consistency is great for a movie, it's a bit of a letdown for a video game where you're spending hundreds of hours in an open world. Rockstar sacrificed a layer of fun that fans had come to expect, leaving us with a world that was technically impressive but significantly less playful than the streets of San Andreas. Moving on, and this one ties directly into everything we've just talked about, which is money. Money in GTA 4 is almost completely useless. You can't buy properties, you can't buy businesses, you can't buy cars, and as we've already covered, there's barely anything worth spending it on in terms of customization either. The economy really boils down to just two things: restocking your ammo and buying clothes. And considering how thin the selection actually is, it doesn't take long before your money starts to feel basically irrelevant. Think about the iconic bank heist mission. It's the peak of the game and you walk away with $250,000 only to realise there isn't a single new thing in the world for you to go out and buy with it. Ultimately, money in Liberty City feels like it's just a scoreboard, not a resource. And that's a strange feeling in a game where half the story is motivated by chasing it. Next up, the friend system. And look, this is actually a really cool concept. Little Jacob, Brucey, Packy, Dwayne. You build relationships with these characters throughout the story or by spending time with them outside of missions, and in return, they unlock special abilities.
Nico, you like it when I hold you on these motorbikes, don't you? Let's go.
Roman gives you free cab service, Jacob sells you discounted weapons, Packy hooks you up with car bombs, Brucey flies you around in his helicopter, and Dwayne sends armed backup to fight alongside you whenever you need it. Great concept. The problem is the execution. Friends will regularly call you to hang out, and there's no way of avoiding it without sacrificing the friendship, therefore losing access to their special abilities. So you're practically held hostage by their phone calls. You're exploring the city, free roaming, or just on the way to a mission, and you get a call from one of your 5 buddies asking to hang out, and if you keep saying no, their like percentage drops and you lose their perks. It doesn't help that the activities themselves are incredibly repetitive. All we have is bowling, darts, pool, eating and drinking, over and over again with the same characters. Once you reach the like percentage needed to unlock a friend's special ability, it should be yours permanently. Players will be incentivized to hang out with these characters to unlock their perks, then after that, the friendship can exist naturally as part of the open world. That way, the whole system stays an awesome feature without becoming a chore, and your friends actually feel like friends instead of a burden. Moving on to GTA 5, an absolute titan of a game with 3 iconic protagonists, a stunning map, revolutionary graphics, and some of the greatest cinematic missions put in a video game for its time. But as the hype of the initial release settled, players became increasingly vocal about their gripes with the game as they were realizing that GTA 5 is actually a significant downgrade in a number of areas when compared to its predecessors, starting off with a feature so fundamental to any modern shooter game that its removal in GTA 5 still baffles players to this day, which is the ability to simply just crouch. What we got instead was a damn near useless stealth mode mechanic where all your character does is hunch over slightly and move more quietly. The biggest issue with tethering our ability to crouch to the cover system is that it assumes the game always knows what you want to hide behind, providing there is any cover within range in the first place. In the previous games, you could create your own cover with everything in the environment no matter the distance and have total control over your line of sight. That control is stripped away from you entirely in GTA GTA 5, as the cover system forces you to be glued to the object at all times. Which is fine, that's what a cover system is for, but sometimes you just want to crouch slightly back, create your own angle, and move a little more freely without being locked to an object. In an open world built around doing whatever you want, it's frustrating when the engine fights your instincts, and at the end of the day, removing the crouch feature was a move that left us with noticeably less freedom than the games that came before it. Next up is the melee combat, a system that somehow feels more primitive than a game released 5 years prior. If you go back and play GTA 4, the hand-to-hand combat felt like a gritty tactical dance. You had dedicated buttons for different types of punches and kicks, a dodge and counter mechanic with multiple variations, and a real sense of weight and impact. You could even perform a disarm on NPCs, snatching the knife or bat out of an enemy's hands to use against them. In GTA 5, that depth was completely hollowed out. While the system is functional and feels pretty smooth, the main issue is the staggering lack of variety. Whether you're throwing a punch or a kick, there are basically no variations to the strikes. Even the dodge and counter mechanic is the exact same animation style basically every time. If you're an avid GTA player, you've seen it 1,000 times. It's especially disappointing when you consider the 3 protagonist system. Rockstar had a golden opportunity to give Michael, Franklin, and Trevor their own distinct fighting styles that match their personalities. Instead, these 3 wildly different characters all fight with the exact same basic animations. Even in San Andreas, you could visit different gyms to learn new fighting styles like martial arts or kickboxing. So yeah, going from the depth of San Andreas and GTA 4 to the repetitive animations of GTA 5 was a legitimate disappointment and a classic case of Rockstar prioritizing visual polish over mechanical depth. Moving on to the world itself, one of the most immersion-breaking downgrades in GTA 5 is the lack of enterable buildings in free roam, mainly restaurants and bars. In GTA 4 and San Andreas, grabbing a bite to eat wasn't just an immersive way to heal, it was a core part of the gameplay experience. You could walk into a Clucking Bell or a burger shop, see customers eating their food, interact with the staff, etc. However, in GTA 5, they've been reduced to nothing more than background scenery. Even the street vendors are completely non-functional. They'll literally be an NPC standing behind the hot dog stand, positioned like they're ready to serve you food, and yet you cannot interact with them at all. It was such a bizarre step back and made Los Santos feel surprisingly shallow. Despite the immense level of detail in the world, it often feels like a movie set where the buildings are just realistic cardboard cutouts, beautiful to look at, but completely hollow. It's another example of how the game's incredible visual fidelity came at the cost of the small, interactive details that made previous entries feel like real places you could actually inhabit. We got a world that is superior in scale than anything we had previously, but in terms of actual depth and immersion, it feels like a bit of a step backwards. Next up, we have no single-player DLCs. Unfortunately, GTA 5 never received a single piece of single-player DLC content. GTA 4 had 2 full standalone expansions with The Lost and Damned and The Ballad of Gay Tony, both critically acclaimed and substantial, so players naturally expected the same treatment with this game. However, the reason why is now well documented, and of course it's because GTA Online became an absolute money-printing machine with the release of shark cards, and so any plans for single-player DLC was scrapped. There was even an Agent Trevor DLC in the works, which would have seen Trevor operating as an FBI agent in a James Bond-style story. Trevor's voice actor Stephen Ogg confirmed they actually shot content for it before it just disappeared. A former senior Rockstar developer also confirmed that single-player DLC was absolutely in the works, and in his own words, it was kick-ass. But once GTA Online proved to be such a cash cow, he said it became hard to make an argument that a standalone DLC could outcompete it, so Rockstar made the call to scrap it entirely, folding whatever assets were completed quietly into later GTA Online updates instead. And that's gonna wrap up things players hate about each Grand Theft Auto game. Let me know in the comments your biggest gripe or if there's any you think should have made the list. And if you enjoyed the video, a like and subscribe helps massively. Until next time, take care.